looked like a horrifying scene. A man was holding two little girls, both covered in blood, gently stroking their heads. The father of one of the girls saw this and punched the man in the face. A police officer shoved a gun under the man's chin and even spat on him in disgust. No one cared that the man was actually trying to save the girls. Before anyone could figure out what really happened, he was already labeled a murderer. A month later, he was sentenced to death. The man's name was Coffee. Before the incident, no one had ever even seen him before. When he first arrived in prison, a cocky, corrupt guard dragged him in with arrogance.
Dead man walking! Dead man walking here! We got a dead man walking here!
But Warden Paul quickly stepped in. He was nervous. Coffee was twice the size of an average man. If someone like him snapped, the consequences would be unimaginable. Besides, with only a short time left to live, he deserved some basic dignity. When Paul looked at Coffee's face, he saw nothing but innocence and confusion in his eyes. He asked Coffee gently,
Questions?
Do you leave the light on after bedtime? Because I get a little scared in the dark sometimes. If it's a strange place.
Then he shook Paul's hand kindly. Everything about him seemed simple and kind, like a big, gentle child. Paul couldn't believe this man could be a killer. Curious, he looked up the case files. He learned Coffee had been found crying, holding the two little girls, begging them to wake up. When the police arrived, he kept sobbing.
I tried to take it back, but it's too late.
Paul couldn't shake the feeling. Coffee didn't seem capable of murder, but the case was closed. There was nothing more to be done. The next day, the guards were sent to pick up another inmate from the hospital. This man drooled, stared blankly, and didn't respond to anything, clearly mentally unstable. They helped him into his pants and brought him back, but as soon as they opened the cell door, he smirked devilishly and attacked. One guard was nearly choked to death by handcuffs. Paul rushed over to help, only to be kicked hard in the groin. The pain dropped him instantly. Paul had long been suffering from a severe urinary condition. During the day, using the bathroom was agonizing. At night, he'd be jolted awake by pain, sometimes collapsing to the floor, before making it to the toilet. Now, that kick made it even worse. Coffee asked to see Paul. Out of respect, Paul dragged himself to the cell. When he asked what Coffee wanted, Coffee reached out, gently placing his giant hands on Paul. The lights in the prison suddenly began to flicker and brighten. Then bang, a bulb exploded. Coffee let go. Paul suddenly realized the pain was gone. He stared at Coffee, stunned. Coffee began to cough violently. Then, to everyone's horror, thousands of black, fly-like insects came pouring from his mouth and disappeared into the air.
What did you just do to me?
I helped it.
Paul rushed to the restroom, and for the first time in years, he peed without pain. It felt incredible. Even something so simple now felt like a blessing. Paul couldn't stop thinking, could a man with this kind of healing power really be a murderer? The next day, Paul met with Coffee's defense attorney. The lawyer explained, no one knew where Coffee had come from. He had no criminal record. He seemed to appear out of nowhere. But, the lawyer added with a shrug, he's black. Trouble just seems to follow them. Paul fell silent. He wasn't racist, but he also couldn't change what others believed. Wanting to show appreciation, Paul brought Coffee a loaf of homemade bread from his wife. Coffee, ever kind, shared it with the French prisoner in the next cell. But this angered the mentally unstable inmate, who began shouting obscenities at Coffee. When Paul intervened, the madman spat directly in Paul's face. Paul said nothing. He'd never stooped to the level of a death row inmate. But this man just kept pushing. During cell checks, the madman would find new ways to humiliate the guards. One day, he grabbed a guard and kissed him on the face. The humiliated officer, son of a powerful judge, wet his pants in fear. He was usually arrogant and cruel to the prisoners. Now, watching him shaken, the Frenchman burst into laughter. The guard felt publicly humiliated. He stared daggers at the Frenchman, secretly swearing, one day I'll make him pay. That Frenchman had a pet mouse, a smart, well-trained creature that did tricks and gave him hope. One day, the mouse slipped out of the cell. The bitter guard saw his chance and stomped it to death. The Frenchman screamed in grief. His heart shattered. Everyone in the block was stunned. They knew how much that mouse meant to him, but the guard just walked away, smug. Then a giant, dark hand reached out. Coffee's. Everyone watched in disbelief as Coffee cradled the lifeless mouse. He kissed it gently. Suddenly, a soft glow appeared. The mouse's tail twitched. Moments later, Coffee opened his mouth, and again, millions of black insects flew out into the air. The mouse came back to life. It was a miracle. None of them could explain it. Paul, still stunned, found the cruel guard and ordered him to leave the prison.
I put you out front, Fidel. You put in your transfer to Briar Ridge the very next day. I put you out front. You put in that transfer. That's the deal.
Days later, Paul visited the Frenchman's cell. Today was his execution day. All he cared about now was whether his mouse would be okay. So Paul comforted him. There's a special place for mice, a village of sorts. They eat, drink, and perform for tourists. Your little friend will be very happy there. The Frenchman smiled through his tears. He was ready now, his heart at peace. But right before the execution, he suddenly began weeping again.
Don't forget about Mouthfeel.
There's no such place. That's just a fairy tale these guys told you to keep you quiet.
That cruel guard had done it on purpose. He wanted the Frenchman to die with regrets. If you want to see what happens next, follow me.